Snow fell like ashes over the silent city. Victoria wrapped herself tighter in her blanket as she stared out the frosted window. The apocalypse had frozen everything: cities, hope, even love. Inside her home, her boyfriend Ethan and best friend Lara huddled by the fire, whispering. Victoria thought they were just stressed, but soon she'd learn those whispers were daggers aimed at her heart. 4 days later, in the middle of a supply-run argument, they turned on her. A knife, a scream, then darkness. But when Victoria opened her eyes, she was back, 4 days before the apocalypse. Her phone buzzed. Breaking news: strange storm warnings spreading across the globe. Her heartbeat raced. This time she wouldn't die. This time she would make them pay. Then she found it, her late grandma's silver bracelet, glowing faintly. When she touched it, a loaf of bread she held vanished, then reappeared inside her mind's vision. Victoria sat on the edge of her bed, clutching the glowing silver bracelet. Her hands trembled not from fear, but from the rush of power. She placed a can of beans on her nightstand. Store. The can vanished into thin air. She closed her eyes, and in her mind she saw a shimmering space. Endless shelves filled with food, water, blankets, even her grandmother's old heater. Her lips curved into a grin. "Grandma, you really outdid yourself." She spent the next 2 days stockpiling like a ghost, silent and unseen. Gas cans from the station, boxes of food from her workplace, medical supplies, clean water. Every item disappeared into the bracelet's magical storage. By the 3rd night, she sat in the same living room where Ethan and Lara once planned her death. She forced herself to smile when Ethan kissed her forehead. "You okay, babe? You look pale." "Oh, I'm fine," she said sweetly. "Just thinking about what's coming." Her eyes flicked toward Lara, who was pretending to scroll her phone but smirking whenever Ethan wasn't looking. Victoria clenched her fists. "You won't win this time." That night when everyone slept, Victoria quietly tested her stored items: a heater, a pot of stew, even gas. Everything worked perfectly. Then she opened her journal and wrote the first line of her plan. Day 1, survive. Day 2, expose. Day 3, revenge. The storm outside began to howl, signaling the coming apocalypse. And Victoria, this time, was ready. The morning was too quiet. No birds, no wind, just an eerie, bone-deep chill that made Victoria's breath hang in the air like smoke. Her phone buzzed nonstop, emergency alerts, power outage warnings, and then silence. The network died. She looked outside. Frost spread unnaturally fast across rooftops and streets, freezing everything in its path. People ran, slipped, and screamed as cars stalled and windows cracked. The cold apocalypse had begun. Victoria turned to Ethan and Lara, who stood frozen in panic. "What the hell is happening?" Lara shouted, clutching her coat. "It's fine," Ethan said, trying to sound brave. "We'll stay here, we have enough food." Victoria smiled faintly. "You think so?" By nightfall, the power was gone. They huddled around candles, arguing about supplies. Ethan whispered to Lara when he thought Victoria wasn't listening. "We'll use her rations first. She's too soft to fight." Victoria bit back a laugh. "Oh, you'll see how soft I am." When they went asleep, she slipped out quietly into the blizzard. From her bracelet, she pulled out warm coats, heaters, gas, and crates of food, enough for weeks. She hid them in her grandmother's old cabin a few miles away. As she trudged through the storm, snow biting her face, she felt something unexpected: freedom. She looked up at the swirling sky and whispered, "Last time I was the victim, this time I'm the storm." Back at home, Ethan and Lara would soon realize the cupboards were mysteriously empty. And Victoria. She was just getting started. By morning, the temperature had dropped to degrees C. The world outside had turned into a white wasteland, cars frozen mid-motion, trees turned to crystal, and silence so thick it hurt to breathe. Ethan and Lara tore through the kitchen. "Where's the food? It was right here last night," Lara snapped, her voice cracking. Ethan cursed, kicking open the pantry door. "Victoria, did you move it?" Victoria looked up from the couch, feigning confusion. The storm probably froze the cans shut. Or maybe, she said with a faint smirk, you didn't ration properly. Lara glared. Don't get smart, Vic, we're starving. Victoria shrugged. Maybe you should have thought about that before the end of the world. The tension hung in the air like frostbite. Ethan's jaw tightened, the same look he had right before he killed her last time. But this time, she wasn't afraid. That evening, while they argued, Victoria slipped away again, heading toward her hidden cabin. She stored more supplies, checked her heater, and mapped escape routes. She whispered to herself, "They think I'm weak. Let's keep it that way." When she returned, Lara was rummaging through her bag. "Looking for something?" Victoria asked softly. Lara jumped, faking a laugh. "Just checking your first aid kit, in case." Victoria smiled. "Sure, in case." But in her heart, she carved her promise deeper. "You'll pay for what you did." As night fell, she quietly placed a tracker she'd salvaged from a broken radio into Ethan's coat. If they tried to run, she'd know. The snowstorm outside howled louder than before. Nature itself seemed to scream vengeance for her. And in the distance, faint howls echoed, not wind, but something else, moving in the frozen dark. The next morning, Victoria woke to a strange noise outside the house. A scraping sound, slow and deliberate, like claws dragging across the frozen porch. She peered through the cracked blinds. Someone was moving through the snow. A figure wrapped in heavy fur stumbled past, clutching a metal spear. Behind him, 3 more shapes moved, survivors. Their eyes were hollow, their faces frostbitten. They were scavenging, desperate, dangerous. Victoria backed away from the window. She remembered what happened last time, how Ethan opened the door to them, trusting strangers. That mistake had cost them everything, well, her everything. Not this time. She quietly reinforced the door, using tools she'd hidden in her bracelet. A new lock, metal braces, even a wooden beam across the handle. When Ethan noticed, he frowned. "Why are you barricading the door? Those people could help us." "Or kill us for what we have," she replied flatly. Lara scoffed. "You're paranoid." Victoria's gaze sharpened. "I'm alive, that's all that matters." Later that night, she checked the bracelet again. The space inside shimmered with energy. Thousands of items she'd collected glowed faintly. But among the supplies, something new had appeared. A golden charm shaped like a flame. It pulsed softly as if alive. Victoria touched it, and warmth spread through her fingers, chasing away the cold. Her grandma's voice whispered faintly in her mind. "The bracelet protects those who protect themselves." Tears burned her eyes. "Thanks, Grandma," she whispered. She pulled her coat tighter, staring at Ethan and Lara asleep on the couch, the 2 people who once stole her life. And outside, the shadows circled again. Something was coming. And soon, Victoria would learn that revenge wasn't the only thing she'd need to survive. Trust might be, too. The sound came just after dawn. Bang, bang, bang. The door shook under the force of the knocks. "Please let us in, we're freezing out here," a voice cried. Ethan was already standing, panic written all over his face. "We can't just ignore them, Victoria. They'll die." Victoria's hand shot out, gripping his arm. "And if you open that door, we will." Lara chimed in, voice trembling. "What if they have food? We can trade." Victoria's expression was ice. "They don't have food. No one does anymore." The knocks grew more frantic. Then came a crack, a shoulder slamming into the door. Victoria reached into her bracelet and pulled out a metal rod. With practiced calm, she jammed it across the doorframe. Ethan stared, shocked. "Where the hell did you get that?" "Doesn't matter," she said. "Just get away from the door." Through the peephole, she saw them, 5 survivors. Frozen lips, blue skin, and wild eyes. One held an axe. Her heart pounded, but not from fear, from memory. Last time, Ethan had let them in. They'd shared their supplies, and 2 days later, those same survivors robbed and killed them. Not again. She took a breath and shouted through the door. "There's nothing here. Leave before the cold takes you. For a moment there was silence. Then one of the men laughed, a deep, broken sound. We know you've got food. We saw smoke last night. We'll come back when you're begging. Their footsteps faded into the snow. Victoria exhaled, finally lowering the rod. Ethan glared at her. You can't just turn people away like that. She looked at him, her eyes cold. People? No, Ethan. Those aren't people anymore. They're hungry ghosts waiting to eat what's left of us. He said nothing. Lara turned pale. As the house fell silent again, Victoria's bracelet pulsed faintly, as if rewarding her for the right choice. She whispered to herself, survive first, revenge second. But as she lay awake that night, she couldn't shake one thought. Those strangers had seen smoke. Someone nearby was alive and watching. By the next morning, the wind had died down, but the silence outside was worse than the storm. Victoria wrapped herself in furs and slipped out before Ethan or Lara woke. Her hidden cabin was a few miles away, buried beneath snow and silence. As she trudged through the frost-bitten woods, her breath coming out in white bursts, she noticed fresh footprints, large ones, human, heading in the same direction. Her pulse quickened. Someone found my stash. She followed the tracks cautiously, her hand brushing the bracelet. If it came to it, she could summon a weapon, a crowbar, a knife, even a flare. When she reached the cabin, she froze. Smoke curled from the chimney. Someone was inside. Quietly, she opened the door just enough to peek in. A man sat near the fire, heating his hands. He was tall, rugged, his face roughened by frost and scars. A rifle leaned against the wall beside him. He turned suddenly, eyes sharp. I know you're there, he said. His voice was deep but calm. If you were gonna shoot, you would have already. Victoria stepped inside, keeping her distance. That's my cabin. The man raised a brow. Didn't see your name on it. She frowned, studying him. His gear was military grade, clearly ex-soldier, maybe survivalist. He didn't look like a scavenger. Still, she couldn't risk it. Leave the supplies, she said, then go. Instead, he smiled slightly and nodded toward her bracelet. That's quite the trick you've got there. Haven't seen tech like that before. Her heart stopped, he saw it. I don't know what you're talking about, she said quickly. He chuckled, raising his hands in mock surrender. Relax, I'm not here to steal. Name's Logan, just trying to stay alive like you. Victoria hesitated. There was something about him, steady, unafraid. After a long pause, she said, Victoria. He nodded. Well, Victoria, if you're smart enough to build a stash like this, maybe we should watch each other's backs. She crossed her arms. Or maybe I should make you disappear into the snow. Logan grinned. You could try. Despite herself, Victoria felt a small, reluctant smile tug at her lips. For the first time since her rebirth, she wasn't entirely alone. But deep inside, she knew, if she let anyone too close again, it could cost her everything. Still, something told her Logan wasn't like the others. The next day, Victoria and Logan worked in near silence, patching up the cabin and checking the traps he'd set in the forest. The cold had grown crueler, frost clung to their eyelashes, and the air sliced through every breath like glass. But Logan moved with practiced ease, calm under pressure. His hands were steady, his eyes sharp. Victoria couldn't help but watch him from the corner of her eye. He was efficient, almost too capable. You've done this before, she said finally. Military, he replied simply, before the world froze over. She nodded. Figures. They worked until sunset, the golden light spilling through the trees like melted amber. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. Almost. When they returned inside, Logan lit a small fire. You're running this operation pretty smartly, he said, nodding at her supplies. But you're hiding something. Victoria froze. What makes you say that? He looked up, meeting her eyes. Because no one hauls this much food around in a blizzard unless they've got magic pockets. Her stomach tightened. He really did notice. Let's just say I planned ahead, she said, her voice cool. Logan chuckled. Fair enough. I won't ask questions, so long as you don't point that knife at me again. Victoria blinked. How did you? He nodded toward her coat pocket. Reflex. I've seen enough scared people to know when someone's ready to stab. For the first time, she laughed. A short, startled laugh she didn't expect to escape her throat. It felt good. Later that night, as the fire crackled, she caught Logan staring into the flames. You ever lose someone? She asked quietly. He didn't look up. Too many. She nodded. Same. Neither said anything after that. The silence between them wasn't empty, it was heavy, but somehow comforting. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and silent, covering their tracks from the world. But back at Victoria's old house, Ethan and Lara had discovered her secret stash was gone. And their rage was just beginning to boil. Victoria stared into the dying fire, her mind torn between warmth and warning. Logan's steady breathing filled the cabin. He was asleep in the corner, rifle resting beside him. Outside, the snow fell endlessly, but in her chest, another storm was brewing. She couldn't stop thinking about Ethan and Lara. They'll come looking for me. They always do. Back in the city, Ethan slammed a frozen cupboard shut, his voice echoing in the half-collapsed kitchen. She took everything, he roared, packing like a caged wolf. Lara shivered in the corner, her lips cracked from dehydration. Forget her, Ethan. We can find food somewhere else. He rounded on her. No, she betrayed us, after everything I did for her. Lara's laugh was bitter. You mean everything you took from her? Ethan's hand lashed out, striking her across the face. Watch your mouth. She didn't speak again. He looked out the window, breathing hard frost fogging the glass. She's alive, I know it, and I'm going to find her. Meanwhile, at the cabin, Victoria woke to the sound of distant gunshots. Logan was already on his feet. We've got company, he muttered, pulling on his coat. They slipped outside, crouching behind a snow-covered truck. Through the blinding white, Victoria saw movement, two figures trudging through the snow, one tall, one smaller, wrapped in familiar clothes. Her blood turned to ice. Ethan, Lara. They found me. Logan glanced at her. Friends of yours. Not anymore, she said coldly. Ethan's voice carried on the wind. Victoria, I know you're out here. We just want to talk. Victoria's hand twitched toward her bracelet. He said the same thing last time. Logan raised a brow. Last time. She met his gaze, eyes dark. Let's just say I've died before. Logan studied her for a beat, then nodded. Then this time, let's make sure they're the ones who regret coming back. Victoria smiled faintly, pulling a hunting knife from thin air, the bracelet's glow hidden beneath her sleeve. Perfect, she whispered. Let's give them a welcome they'll never forget. The wind howled like a living thing, tearing through the trees. Victoria crouched beside Logan, her breath sharp in the frozen air. Snowflakes clung to her lashes as she watched Ethan and Lara stumble closer through the storm. Two of them, Logan murmured, checking the sight on his rifle. You want me to scare them off or drop them where they stand? Victoria's grip on her knife tightened. Not yet, they'll come to us. Let's make it worth their walk. Together, they worked quickly and silently. Logan set up a snare trap near the path, half buried under snow. Victoria scattered torn scraps of packaging, fake signs of abandoned supplies, to bait them in. She glanced toward the horizon, then back at him. You've done this before, she whispered. Logan smirked. You pick things up when the world ends. Minutes later, Ethan and Lara appeared through the curtain of snow. Victoria, Ethan shouted, voice hoarse. We just want to talk, we're sorry. Victoria and Logan hid behind the wreck of an old truck, watching. Lara's steps slowed, her eyes darting around nervously. Ethan, this doesn't feel right. Snap. The trap clamped around her ankle with a sickening crunch. She screamed, collapsing into the snow. Ethan dropped beside her, panicking. Hold on, I've got you. Victoria stepped out from behind the truck. Her knife gleamed in the stormlight. Hello, Ethan. He froze, eyes wide. Vic, you're alive. Disappointed, she asked coldly. He stammered. No, we were scared. We didn't mean for things to go that way. She took a step closer. You stabbed me, together. Ethan's lips trembled. You have no idea how hard it's been. Victoria cut him off. Oh, I do, I lived it, then I died for it. Logan appeared behind her, rifle raised. Looks like the reunion, over, he said flatly. Lara sobbed, clutching her bleeding ankle. Please, Victoria, we were just desperate. Victoria's hand shook, anger and memory warring inside her. She could end it now, she could finally have peace. But then Logan's hand touched her shoulder. Don't waste your second life on people like them, he said quietly. Take their supplies, leave their guilt. Victoria stared at Ethan, her chest heaving. Then she lowered her knife. Pray the cold finishes you before I change my mind. She turned and walked away, snow swallowing her footprints, leaving her past buried behind her. After the encounter, Victoria returned to the cabin, the cold seeping into her bones. Logan was already tending the fire, the flames crackling with a warmth that felt almost like home. She removed her gloves and sank into a chair, staring into the flames. I thought revenge would feel better, she muttered. Logan handed her a steaming cup of water. Revenge is heavy, he said quietly. Sometimes surviving is the only victory you need. Victoria took a sip, letting the warmth spread through her. I killed them in my mind 100 times, and yet it doesn't feel like closure. Logan leaned back, studying her. Maybe you're looking at it the wrong way. You survived them, Victoria. That's bigger than any knife or trap. She watched him, heart fluttering in a way she hadn't felt in years or maybe ever. Logan wasn't just a protector. He was steady, unyielding, a fire in the endless cold. The snowstorm outside raged, but inside, the cabin was a haven. Victoria found herself laughing at Logan's dry humor, sharing stories of past survival, and even teaching him a few tricks she'd learned from the bracelet. As the night deepened, she realized something terrifying and wonderful. She trusted him, completely. For the first time since rebirth, she felt a flicker of hope, not just for survival, but for something more. Her bracelet glimmered faintly on her wrist, as if sensing her resolve. Victoria placed a hand over it. Thank you, Grandma, she whispered. I'm ready for the world and whatever comes next. Outside, the cold apocalypse raged on. Inside, a fire burned not just in the hearth, but in Victoria herself. Tomorrow, she would rebuild, reclaim, and maybe even love. But tonight she was alive, truly alive. The next morning, the world was buried under another foot of snow. Visibility was almost zero, the blizzard fierce enough to erase footprints in seconds. Victoria and Logan packed essentials from the cabin into the bracelet, food, heaters, water, preparing to venture out. Where to? Logan asked, tightening his scarf. Victoria's eyes scanned the frozen horizon. We need supplies and allies. If this cold keeps spreading, no one will survive alone. They trudged through the white wilderness, the wind biting at their cheeks. Every step was a battle, every gust a warning. And yet, Victoria felt alive in a way she never had before, free from betrayal, guided by her grandmother's magical bracelet, and with Logan beside her. Halfway through the day, they spotted movement. A small group of survivors trapped in a frozen ditch, shivering and near collapse. Without hesitation, Victoria pulled supplies from her bracelet, blankets, food, water. Logan helped hoist the survivors out. Who are you? One of them gasped. Someone who's not letting this cold win, Victoria replied firmly, handing out food. As the group warmed, Victoria realized something. Survival wasn't just about hiding and hoarding. It was about helping those who deserved it, while letting the greedy and treacherous perish. Later, she and Logan huddled near a fire with the rescued group, their faces illuminated by flames and hope. Logan nudged her gently. You're something else, Victoria. I've never met anyone like you. Her heart skipped. She looked away, warmth flooding more than just her body. I've been given a second chance, I won't waste it. The blizzard roared outside, but inside, for the first time since rebirth, Victoria felt a quiet joy, survival, justice, and maybe even love, all intertwined. And far away, Ethan and Lara struggled in the storm, lost, hungry, and realizing for the first time that their greed had cost them everything. Weeks passed, and the cold apocalypse showed no mercy. Snow piled high over abandoned towns, and frost-coated trees looked like shattered glass. Victoria's group had grown, some survivors joined willingly, others reluctantly. Each day, she trained them, shared resources, and strengthened the shelters she built with Logan by her side. Yet her mind often wandered back to Ethan and Lara. She had seen them once, distant shadows in the blizzard, starving and desperate. They deserved to pay for what they did, she thought, tightening her grip on the bracelet. One evening, a frantic scout returned from the city outskirts. Ethan and Lara, they're heading toward the cabin. They've found food caches, they're angry. Victoria's heart beat faster, not with fear but anticipation. Logan stepped beside her. Time to finish this. She nodded. Time to remind them who they betrayed. That night, she set a strategic trap around the cabin, using the bracelet to create hidden stashes and bait, food, heaters, and water, carefully laced with snow traps. When Ethan and Lara finally appeared, frostbitten and weak, Victoria confronted them, flanked by her allies. Ethan gasped, recognizing her. Victoria, we didn't know. You didn't know, she cut in, eyes icy. You killed me. You tried to take everything from me. Do you think I'd forget? Lara whimpered, dropping to her knees. We were scared. We didn't mean it. Victoria smiled, the smile of someone who had reclaimed power. Scared doesn't excuse murder. Snow crunched under footsteps as her group surrounded them. Ethan and Lara realized too late, this wasn't the same Victoria they betrayed. Logan whispered to her, You want to finish it or just let the cold do the work? Victoria's eyes gleamed. Let's see them survive the storm. Their greed was their undoing. As the blizzard howled, Victoria felt a surge of satisfaction. Justice wasn't just revenge. It was survival and triumph over those who underestimated her. The storm finally began to ease, and a pale golden light seeped through the clouds, turning the snow into a dazzling sea of white. Victoria stood outside the cabin, her breath steaming in the cold air. Around her, the survivors she had saved were tending fires and preparing for the days ahead. Logan approached quietly, carrying 2 steaming cups of water. He handed one to her. We made it, he said simply. Victoria smiled, feeling warmth spread not just from the cup but from inside her chest. She glanced at him, and for the first time, words failed her. You saved me, she said softly. He shrugged. We saved each other. She laughed, a sound that felt foreign yet freeing. I thought surviving was all I needed, but her eyes met his, and the words hung in the cold air. Maybe this, us, is something worth surviving for too. Logan's hand brushed hers, gentle, sure. I've been hoping you'd say that. The survivors watched from a distance, some smiling, some shaking their heads at the sight of the unlikely pair. But Victoria didn't care. For the first time in her second life, she felt a true connection, love not born of necessity or fear, but of trust, respect, and shared survival. As the frozen sun rose higher, melting the edges of the harsh world around them, Victoria knew that the worst was behind her. She had reclaimed her life, defeated betrayal, and found something she hadn't expected to find in the apocalypse: happiness. Her grandmother's bracelet shimmered faintly, a reminder of the second chance she'd been given. Victoria held Logan's hand and whispered, We'll survive anything together. Months passed, and the apocalypse remained harsh, but Victoria and her group thrived. Using the bracelet, they built hidden caches, improvised heaters, and created a small network of survivors who respected her leadership and wisdom. Ethan and Lara were never seen again, lost to the cold, their greed and betrayal having sealed their fate. Victoria didn't mourn, she had no reason to. She had reclaimed everything, her life, her dignity, and her peace. The winter finally began to thaw. Ice cracked and rivers flowed again. The once frozen cities looked like ghost towns, but Victoria saw opportunity, a chance to rebuild. Logan stood beside her on a hill overlooking the remnants of the city, the sunrise painting the sky gold and crimson. "You've done something incredible," he said. "You turned survival into life." Victoria smiled, feeling the warmth in more than just her hands. "I couldn't have done it alone," she replied, squeezing his hand. Together they began helping other survivors, sharing resources from the bracelet and teaching them how to endure the cold. Laughter returned to their days, sometimes awkward, sometimes spontaneous, but always genuine. One evening, Victoria looked at the bracelet, her grandmother's legacy. She whispered, "Thank you, Grandma, for giving me a second chance, for showing me that even in the coldest times, warmth and love can survive." Logan leaned in, brushing a kiss against her forehead. "Here, to the new world," he said. Victoria closed her eyes, letting the sunrise wash over her. A world reborn just like her. She had survived betrayal. She had survived the apocalypse. And in the end, she had found love, hope, and a life worth living. The snow melted, but her strength and her story would endure forever. Snowflake the End Snowflake.